If someone can hurt you, cross your boundaries, drain your energy, and still get unlimited access to you just because they share your blood, then you are not in a family bond. You are in a psychological trap. Today I'm breaking down 6 toxic behaviors you must never tolerate, not even from family, because the most dangerous manipulation doesn't come from strangers. It comes wrapped in familiarity, guilt, and obligation. If this is hitting close to home, pause for a second. Like this video, subscribe, and stay with me, because what comes next is about how to protect your mind without burning bridges or losing your identity. When disrespect is hidden inside jokes or framed as brutal honesty, it becomes one of the most dangerous forms of toxicity because it bypasses your defenses. On the surface, it sounds harmless. A laugh, a smirk, a comment followed by, "I'm just kidding," or "I'm just telling the truth." But psychologically, what's happening underneath is not humor or honesty. It's positioning. Every time someone makes you the punchline, questions your intelligence, downplays your achievements, or mocks your emotions, they are subtly lowering your status in the group. And when you react, they flip the script and make you look like the problem for not being able to take a joke. Over time, this creates confusion. You start wondering if you're actually too sensitive. You replay the moment in your head. You minimize it. You excuse it. That's how tolerance begins. But the nervous system doesn't joke. Your body registers the disrespect even when your mind tries to rationalize it. That tight feeling in your chest, the hesitation before speaking, the urge to stay quiet to avoid being mocked again, those are signals that your sense of safety is being chipped away. People who use this tactic often do it repeatedly because it gives them power without consequences. They get to insult you while maintaining plausible deniability. If you confront them, they accuse you of being dramatic. If you stay silent, they take it as permission. Either way, they win unless you interrupt the pattern. And when this behavior comes from family, it cuts deeper because you're socially conditioned to endure it. You're told that respect should be automatic, that love means tolerance, and that calling it out will cause problems. But what actually causes long-term damage is staying in an environment where your dignity is slowly eroded. Disrespect disguised as humor trains you to shrink. It teaches you to doubt your worth and censor your voice. And once that pattern is established, it rarely stays verbal. It spreads into decisions, boundaries, and how much space you believe you deserve in every relationship. Guilt-based control works because it doesn't force you to do anything directly. It makes you do it to yourself. When someone says, "After everything I've done for you," or "This is how you repay me," they are not expressing hurt. They are activating a debt narrative in your mind. The message underneath is simple and powerful. You owe me. And once you accept that frame, your choices stop being choices. They become repayments. Psychologically, guilt bypasses logic and goes straight to identity. You're not just saying no to a request. You're being made to feel like a bad person for having needs, limits, or independence. That's why guilt is so effective inside families. From a young age, you're taught that loyalty equals sacrifice and that love means compliance. So when guilt is applied, it doesn't feel like manipulation. It feels like moral failure. You start questioning your character instead of their behavior. Over time, this creates a pattern of self-betrayal. You agree when you're exhausted. You stay silent when you're hurt. You show up when your body is telling you not to. And the more you comply, the stronger the control becomes. Because guilt doesn't disappear when you give in. It resets. The bar moves. What was once a favor becomes an expectation, and what was once appreciation becomes entitlement. People who rely on guilt rarely respect boundaries because boundaries threaten their leverage. If you assert yourself, they escalate emotionally. They remind you of past sacrifices, compare you to others, or position themselves as the victim. This keeps you trapped in a loop where proving you're good matters more than protecting your well-being. The most important thing to understand is this. Healthy love may feel disappointed at times, but it does not demand self-abandonment. Guilt-based control teaches you that your value comes from how much you give up, And the moment you stop tolerating that narrative, you reclaim something essential, the right to choose without shame. Boundary punishment is what happens when someone doesn't argue with your boundary, but instead makes you suffer for setting it. You say no, you ask for space, you express a limit, and suddenly the atmosphere changes. The warmth disappears. Conversations go cold. You're met with silence, sarcasm, anger, or emotional distance. Nothing is said directly, yet everything is felt. This is not confusion or hurt. It is conditioning. The message being sent is clear even if it's never spoken. If you protect yourself, you will pay for it. Psychologically, this is powerful because humans are wired to avoid social rejection. When someone withdraws affection or creates tension after you assert a boundary, your nervous system associates self-respect with danger. The next time you think about saying no, your body remembers the punishment. You hesitate, you over-explain, you backtrack. Eventually, you stop setting boundaries altogether, not because you don't need them, but because the cost feels too high. This behavior is especially damaging in families because connection is framed as survival. You're taught that harmony matters more than honesty, that keeping the peace is your responsibility. So when boundary punishment happens, you internalize it as your fault. You think maybe I was too harsh, maybe I should have said it differently, maybe I should just let it go next time. And that's how control tightens without force. People who punish boundaries are not interested in compromise. They are interested in access. Your boundary threatens their ability to use your time, energy, or emotional availability freely. Instead of adapting, they create discomfort, so you'll do the adapting for them. And when this pattern goes unchecked, it escalates. A small limit becomes a major offense. A simple no becomes a personal attack. The danger is not the reaction itself. The danger is what it teaches you over time. That your needs create problems, that your limits cause damage, that love requires endurance instead of mutual respect. And once that belief takes root, it doesn't stay confined to one relationship. It shapes how you show up everywhere, how much you tolerate, how small you make yourself, how often you override your own instincts just to keep things calm. Emotional invalidation is one of the quietest ways a person can undermine you because it doesn't attack you directly. It erases you. When you express hurt, confusion, or discomfort, and the response is, "You're overreacting, that never happened," or "You're too sensitive," the focus shifts away from what you felt and onto whether you're allowed to feel it at all. Over time, this creates a deep internal conflict where your emotions stop feeling like reliable information and start feeling like inconveniences. The human brain depends on emotional feedback to make sense of reality. When that feedback is repeatedly dismissed, you begin to question your own perceptions. You replay conversations, doubt your memory, and look for proof that you're justified in feeling what you feel. This constant self-checking drains mental energy and weakens confidence. You become easier to influence because you no longer trust your internal signals. In families, emotional invalidation is often normalized. It's framed as toughness, practicality, or keeping things from becoming dramatic. But the effect is the same. Your inner experience is treated as irrelevant unless it aligns with someone else's comfort. Eventually, you stop sharing, not because you don't feel, but because you've learned that being honest only leads to dismissal or ridicule. This kind of invalidation also shifts responsibility. Instead of addressing harmful behavior, the problem becomes your reaction to it. This allows patterns to continue unchallenged. If you're always too emotional, then nothing ever has to change. And when this happens repeatedly, you start adjusting yourself to fit the environment rather than expecting the environment to be respectful. The long-term impact is subtle but serious. You lose emotional clarity. You struggle to name what you feel. You second-guess decisions that are actually healthy for you. And once you're disconnected from your emotional reality, it becomes harder to protect yourself because boundaries are built on knowing when something doesn't feel right. Emotional invalidation trains you to ignore that signal. And a person who ignores their own feelings becomes increasingly vulnerable to control, not just in one relationship, but across their entire life. Conditional love is one of the most damaging dynamics because it teaches you that connection must be earned. Affection, support, and warmth are given only when you behave the right way, agree with the right opinions, or stay within invisible limits. The moment you disagree, grow, or assert independence, that love is reduced or withdrawn. Psychologically, this creates a constant state of alertness. You are not relating freely. You are monitoring yourself, adjusting your behavior to avoid emotional loss. The brain interprets conditional love as instability. You never know where you stand, so you become hyper-aware of tone, mood shifts, and reactions. Over time, this trains you to associate authenticity with risk. You learn that being fully yourself costs you connection, while compliance keeps you safe. This is how people lose their sense of self without realizing it. They don't change overnight. They slowly edit themselves down to what feels acceptable. In families, conditional love is often disguised as discipline, tradition, or concern. You're told it's for your own good, that expectations are normal, that loyalty requires sacrifice. But healthy expectations don't threaten abandonment. They don't make love feel fragile. When affection is used as a reward and distance is used as punishment, it becomes a behavioral control system. You are being shaped, not supported. This pattern also distorts your understanding of worth. Instead of believing you have value simply because you exist, you begin to believe your value depends on performance, being helpful, being agreeable, being easy to deal with. And once that belief takes root, it doesn't stay limited to family. It follows you into friendships, work, and romantic relationships, where you tolerate imbalance just to feel chosen. The most dangerous part is how normal it starts to feel. You stop asking whether something is fair and start asking whether it will cost you love. Decisions become fear-based instead of values-based. You hesitate before speaking. You suppress needs. You prioritize harmony over honesty. Conditional love doesn't just control behavior. It reshapes identity by teaching you that love is something you must earn instead of something you are allowed to receive. Refusal to take responsibility is toxic because it creates a closed loop where nothing can ever be repaired. When someone never apologizes, never reflects, and never acknowledges their impact, every conflict becomes unsolvable. There is no resolution, only repetition. You bring up an issue, and it's met with denial, excuses, blame shifting, or silence. The focus immediately moves away from what happened and onto why it's somehow your fault for mentioning it. Psychologically, this is exhausting because the mind is wired to seek closure. When accountability is absent, your brain keeps revisiting the same events, trying to make sense of them. You replay conversations, rewrite what you could have said differently, and carry emotional weight that was never yours to hold. Over time, this creates chronic stress and a sense of futility, as if no amount of honesty will ever lead to change. In family systems, this behavior is often protected by hierarchy. Age, role, or status is used as a shield. You're expected to understand, forgive, and move on, while the other person remains unchanged. This silently teaches you that responsibility flows in only one direction. You must adapt, but they don't. And once that imbalance is established, it becomes permanent unless you step out of the role. People who refuse responsibility rely on endurance. They wait you out. They know that if they stay firm long enough, you'll either drop the issue or doubt yourself. This isn't stubbornness, it's a power strategy. If they never admit fault, they never have to change. And if you stay, the cost of that refusal is paid by your emotional health. The most harmful effect is what it normalizes inside you. You begin to lower expectations. You stop bringing things up. You tell yourself it's not worth the energy. But what you're really doing is teaching yourself that your experiences don't deserve acknowledgement. And when accountability disappears from a relationship, respect follows it. Nothing grows in an environment where responsibility is optional, and staying there slowly teaches you to accept less than you deserve.